Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Funny Shrink Podcast. I'm Mike Cotayo, and this is my lovely and talented co host, Frank King. And we are going to talk a little bit today about the road. Frank, I just noticed your name is listed as the possum.
Frank, the Possum King. Yeah, you know why, Mike? Because I was on the road for 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop, no home, post office box, voicemail with my lovely wife, who started out as my lovely girlfriend. And a year or so in, we got married. So they call me the possum because where's the possum? Always on the road. And I had possum T-shirts made, and on the back was a possum crossing sign, yellow and black. And
Uh-huh.
right across the possum's back was a tire track. Possum's eyes, with the X's. And the tire track, when you turn the lights off, glowed in the dark. I love a T-shirt that does something. So I was Frank the Possum King. I had possum T-shirts. I had possum condoms for a while.
What?
Yeah, yeah. Well, for the older guy, you put it on, it plays dead. Uh, so yeah, that's why I was a possum, because possum's always and a bunch of possum bits. Is the possum not the number one roadkill animal in the United States? I mean, I was watching a space shuttle land the other day. There's a possum stuck up underneath it. The problem with the possum, for the possum, by the way, in case you're wondering, is because we were in Roanoke, Virginia, playing the Roanoke Comedy Club. The local history museum, had a possum exhibit, so we went because I'd never seen a live possum before in captivity. And the problem with the possum is, one, they don't see very well, although they do have an amazing sense of smell. And two, what they eat mostly is dead insects and such. Well, where are many, many dead insects? On the road. It's like one long buffet. And the problem is, possum doesn't see well, great sense of smell, but by the time the possum goes, "What's that? Diesel?" Boom. So anyway, that's why I'm Frank the Possum King.
If you had a shorter comedy career, I could make tons of jokes.
Yeah, my wife had a ball doing it. Opened up for and worked with, and back then they put you up in comedy condos on the road. Rosie and Ellen and Dennis Miller, Foxworthy, Ron White, Bill Engvall, Bill Maher, Adam Sandler. Back in the day when they were just comics before they got rich and famous.
Oh,
It was
Frank, dropped a
what?
lot of names. Hold on, you should pick them up.
Do what?
You dropped a lot of names. You should
Oh,
pick them
sorry. Yeah, well, there were many more actually. Opened up on New Year's Eve, two shows at the Hotel Del Coronado for Lou Rawls. Nice guy and smooth, oh my lord.
up.
Yeah, well, the people always ask. I caught the comedy wave in '85. It lasted until '93. The comedy boom lasted until about '95, and I. The reason it began to fade was, the great clubs were the Improv, Punchline, Funny Bone. The thing that held the tour together, the reason we were able to do that many nights in a row was there's all these horrible one-nighters, beer bars, pool halls, honky tonks, drunk idiots screaming, "Tell us some jokes we can dance to." Okay, here comes a slow one you can slow dance. The one nighters began to go away. They went to whatever the next big thing was in bar entertainment. I think it was actually dwarf tossing. Where the dwarf's wearing Velcro and the walls got Velcro on it, and you throw the not something you can get away with today, I'm sure. But
No.
but that was the
And
end of the road. The end of the road comedy. It's come back since then, but by then I was doing corporate comedy, making a lot more money. So
do you miss it? You miss being on the road?
no. Every now and then when I'm playing a gig, corporate gig, staying someplace nice like the Phoenician, some five-star hotel where they had the bathrobe and the slippers. And before I pull my bags into the room, I stand in the doorway with my iPhone, take a picture of the room at the Phoenician, the bedroom, the hotel room, and I post it on Facebook. Okay, if you're my age, 63, and a comic, and you're still playing clubs, you might be doing it wrong, because the accommodations, Mike, are not.
Oh, I know.
Let me
I
give you
got
my first story. I was in doing a gig in what was it, South Bend, Indiana, and I had to provide my own hotel room. Well, it was a Notre Dame football weekend, so there are no hotel rooms available in South Bend. There's a little town next door called Michigan City, Indiana. Men are men and homes are mobile. Uh, Bumper sticker, number one bumper sticker in Michigan City says, if you can read this, you ain't from around here. Anyway, pulled into this hotel where I'd made the reservation, walked in, said to the night clerk, I've got a reservation. I need a room for the night. And he said, and I quote, the whole night? No, just long enough to get monkeypox and I'm out of here. So that's another reason I no longer do clubs, because it was horrible, you know. When we had Jim Mendrino's on, we were talking about the Palazzos that owned the comic strip in New York and the one in Lauderdale. They put us up in a hotel called the Berkeley, where I got crabs from the linen. And I called down to the front desk and I said, I think your linen is giving me crabs. And the guy, without missing a beat, if you will purchase the crab shampoo, we will happily reimburse you if you provide the receipt. Which means I was not the first person who had that problem, because he was not startled nor surprised, and he was willing to buy the crab shampoo.
crabs do not cost extra.
Yeah. There were prostitutes operating out of the room next door, and I imagine that's where the crabs came from.
Yeah, probably. And that's okay. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. We all got to make a living.
That's true. Well, the funny thing is, I was sitting there and there was a window by my door, full length window, top to bottom, and the desk was there. And I put my computer on there, and I'm looking out at the scenery in Lauderdale, and these sort of scantily dressed women in high heel shoes kept walking by the window and smiling big and waving. And I'm thinking, well, I guess I'm better looking than I thought I was. I didn't know it was going to be a cash transaction, so.
So I came up in New York City, so there were tons of clubs around, and I have a physical disability, and when I was a kid, I had a seizure disorder, so it was very hard for me to get a driver's license. So I was always at the mercy of other comics to go on the road. I loved the road because people on the road laugh so much more easier. New York audiences are kind of like snobs. They're like, oh, that's all you got? Okay. But it's a great training ground for whatever you do.
I admire you for starting in New York. Anybody starts in New York or LA, I just can't imagine.
And like I did so well. I got like a great following, and I was doing one show in somewhere in Jersey or Delaware, I can't remember, and it was one nighter, and I went up. I was touring with the Short Bus Comedy Tour, a tour of disabled comedians, and it was a lot of fun. And I went up, and after the show was over, I was online for the bathroom, and some guy came up to me and goes, man, you were great. I heard you on the radio and I drove 2.5 hours to see you. I was so happy. Like, and then I did the math. I'm like, 2.5 hours here, 2.5 hours back. That's 5 hours plus 2 hours for a show. 7 now. This guy just performed a job to come. And then my self-esteem started in, and I'm like, you're not worth 7 hours. Why would someone waste 7 hours to see you perform for a half hour? This makes no sense. And like that was actually the start of my demise in leaving comedy. Like I quit comedy in 2007, and I gotta thank that guy for ruining my career. Like it was one of the biggest mistakes I think I ever made, is leaving at the height of that, because I had like a crazy fan base.
Yeah, obviously.
people really enjoyed who I was. And if I would have stuck with it, I think my next venture would have been TV. But like I've squandered a lot of things away because of low self-esteem or not thinking I was worth it. Like the woman who ran the HBO Comedy Festival saw me perform for a workshop and told me in front of an audience of 30 other comics, that was so funny. We need you to submit a tape. And I never submitted the tape.
Oh, Mike.
So I was so afraid of not making it. Like, you know, I had a lot of experiences where I wish I had a lot more faith in myself. But the best shows I ever did were on the road because, they love more. They love to laugh more.
Yeah, they were jaded. In LA, the Improv wasn't bad because you get a lot of people from out of town. But the best club in LA was in Pasadena, the Ice House, because it was almost all civilians. No, jaded Hollywood type, just regular people.
I have a story about I won't tell it. Never mind. So the road was awesome. Like there were a lot of things that I loved about it. I loved the traveling. I loved traveling with other people. There was a camaraderie there. Like it must have been great to travel with your girlfriend, now wife, and get to know her more.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's one of those things either makes a marriage or blows it completely apart. Because we had a Toyota 4Runner, and if you got mad at the other person, the only place you could go was a back seat to get away. So and it was an adventure. We were in our mid 20s to mid 30s. I mean, who doesn't want to pack everything up? Quit your job, crawl in a car with a gorgeous blonde, and go on the road and do stand up. I mean, it was a dream come true. And as I said, we met amazing people.
I'm envious of that. What would you say to another comedian who is just starting out who wants to do the road?
Yeah, I guess the road still exists. The problem is, Mike, back in the day, back in 85, 6, 7, 8, 9, the punchline was paying, I think I was getting $450 plus $50 travel to MC. And nowadays, I think that's good feature money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually made it. We didn't make a great living, but we made a living because I worked every week and practically every night. And so, and we didn't have any apartment or anything, so didn't have to pay rent. That's the problem. Jen McGinnis, friend of mine, we're starting a podcast called Over 50 and Effing Funny for guys and gals who comics just never escape gravity, never launch, but are extremely funny.
Mm-hmm.
And she was doing the road. She did the road for a time and hated it. And I helped her get into corporate comedy because that's where it's tough on a woman on the road by herself, especially with my wife. She just came along for the ride. We were a pair, and people actually liked her better than did me. Enjoyed having her around, but for her it was like living in a frat house. And for Jan McGinnis, also like living in a frat house, only she was by herself. So it wasn't an easy time for everybody. And and we had our difficulties. Car breakdown. I think we got stiffed one time on pay. A punchline opened and closed very quickly. I don't think we got paid. Have you ever been stiffed by a booker?
Oh yeah. It's the best experience I ever did. A friend of mine brought me up to feature, and I did a good hour because no one let me. And I was waiting for him to say, show me something to get off stage. And I got off stage. I'm like, dude, you let me do over an hour. What? He was like, you were killing, man. I didn't want to interrupt him. So, best show. 5 months later, I get no money. I'm calling the booker, and he's like, they're closed. They shut down. That was, and as a comic, you learn how to survive. I survived on $5 a day for like 6 years. Like I would know where to go for free food. I would know where to go to get a haircut. I would learn like tricks, and I would budget out $5 a day. Just
Yeah, we carried a cooler or two, microwave. I carried a fax machine because I was faxing jokes to Leno every day. So when we moved into a hotel room, we we basically camped. Um, I can remember coming back to the room one night. I think we were in Florida, Pensacola, at a Comedy Zone, and I get back to the room, and the room is dark, no lights, no nothing. And my wife goes, "Is the power out in the entire hotel?" She'd blown a fuse in that wing of the building. Microwave, hair dryer, fax machine on, pow, dark.
oh my God, that is great.
And it was dangerous in that they put you up in a comedy condo, 3-bedroom condo, and some of the condos are not in the best neighborhood. The in Nashville, comedy catch. No, that's not the club. That's Chattanooga. There was a club in Nashville, Zanies, and they put us up in a condo that was pretty close to downtown, and it was a bad neighborhood. So she and I, over time, got permits to carry concealed, and we used to go to the gun range once a week to practice. And if we're staying in a really bad condo, we go to the gun range, practice, and then we bring home the best target we had, best grouping. We push pin that to the bedroom door. So if you're walking down the hall and you're not supposed to be there, you're going to rob everybody. And there are 3 bedroom doors, and one of them has a target with a nice tight pattern right here. Are you really going to go in the bedroom?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some close calls with, bad people because some of those condos were in really, and the punchline in Georgia, the headliner slept in a room where the window was, you could actually, put your head up over the window if you're standing on the ground. And I guess the guy who was the headliner the previous week was selling drugs somehow or other. And so I'm there in the middle of the night and I always slept with my gun. And all of a sudden there's a head sticking through the window. Somebody come back to buy more drugs. So, yes, how can I help you? Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot. Yeah, so it wasn't all 5-star hotels,
No, I can't believe it. There are good things and bad things about the road. Like I remember I used to be able to get away with so much on the road because I've always looked younger than my age. Like right now I'm 87, and I always looked younger than my age, so I was able to get away with a lot more than I would be. And like it was always easy to get over on people. I don't say I did it a lot, but once in a while.
Yeah, the thing I miss about the road, Mike, is the usually it's the 3-comic show.
Mm-hmm.
So you're there all week with a couple of other comics, plus oftentimes the local comics who come and hang out. And so that's one of my favorite parts of the job was hanging out with the comics you're working with, hanging out with the local comics that you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do something like a ship or a corporate date, you're there by yourself. There's there's no camaraderie. There's no swapping stories, or talking bad about other comics and stabbing them in the back. All the fun stuff.
That was my favorite thing about any comedy show is sitting in the back with the comics, shooting the shit, and just like talking about how you're doing on the road or in your hometown.
And telling stories about other comics who've done something stupid, it's
I mean, I always wish I didn't, like, I'm grateful I came up in New York, but I always wish I was a big fish in a small pond instead of a small fish in a big pond. The good thing about that is you work a lot harder when you're in New York or LA to get seen.
Yeah, or even San Diego. I came up at the Comedy Store in San Diego, then moved over to the Improv. And I was the house MC at the Improv in San Diego. And the comics that came down, Dennis Miller came down when he first moved to LA to get some stage time. So the manager could see him. So Dennis Miller is the feature act. So the mistake I made was because I set the bar there. Well, Dennis Miller's a feature. I'm an MC. So when I went on the road, I went out as an MC, and I realized very quickly that I was as funny as the middle, sometimes funnier, and as funny as the headliner. And I had more press and publicity and stuff because San Diego, they had a PR company at the Improv doing press for them. I should have gone out as a middle.
Right.
Comparing myself to, the actors that are coming down to the Improv in San Diego, all from LA. Ellen DeGeneres, Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Miller, Kevin Pollak. So yeah, in that world, I was an MC. So
when I did the Short Bus Comedy Tour, there was there were 4 comics. The first one up, we had the same lineup every week, and I was effing funny. So I would make it hard for the headliner to do his spot because my jokes would hit a lot harder or a lot. Like he would come up to me after every show, man, you're making it hard for me. And I said, put me in a headliner spot. He didn't want to do it. So
I've said more than once when the headliner complained about, because I had a slideshow, funny pictures from the road, funny misspellings, odd juxtapositions, the corner of good and high. Anyway, the headliners hated that slideshow because I always closed with it, and it hit really hard. And somebody complained to me about it. He goes, man, you make it so hard to follow. I go, here's the deal. You're making headliner money. If you're headlining, you should be able to follow Jesus Christ. Ladies and gentlemen, another hand for your Lord and Savior. Now, please welcome your headliner.
I think that's the beauty of the road is you got to learn how to roll with the punches.
Yeah. Well, and Steve Rizzo from Long Island was a comic on the road at the time. He's now a big-time professional speaker. What his clients don't know, that I do know, is Steve used to close his act by doing impressions of cartoon characters having sex on stage.
I've seen him.
Yeah, I wish I had a video of that. But anyway, we were closing in on 2,000 nights on the road. And Steve said to me, hey, man, how many nights you been on the road? So I did the math. 2,000 and change. He goes, that's your hook. You need to start calling ahead, 2-3 weeks ahead to the newspaper and where you're going, the TV stations, radio stations. You're the homeless comic. You don't have a home. You've been on the road 2,000. So I started doing that. I started calling up the weekly, the entertainment-driven weekly, the newspaper. Some of the TV stations, small towns have a noontime show. And I got an amazing amount of press, which the club didn't have to pay for or try to wrangle. They loved me for it. And I can remember going into the Funny Bone in St. Louis. And there was a camera crew trailing me, because they wanted to do a little cinema verite. They wanted to show me arriving at the club and going into the room. And I can remember Dennis Miller, who was the headliner, saying, who the hell is that guy? Because I go in the middle acts dragging a camera crew into the showroom.
That's incredible.
We almost got a Toyota commercial because in the late 80s, early 90s, Toyota had a contest. If your Toyota had more than 200,000 miles on it, then they wanted to hear about it. They're going to do a commercial. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was every time I got a local news story, on TV, I'd send the advertising agency a video. Every time I got a newspaper article, I'd send the advertising. So I can't remember who the advertising agency was, but I think when I cracked 200,000 miles, I called them up. And they passed me through to the guy who was in charge of the Toyota account. And I said to him, hey, man, I'm Frank King. And he goes, I know who you are. I've got a stack of videotapes on my desk that's 3 feet tall of you in that car. He goes, look, here's the deal. You're in the top 6. So you got a 1 in 6 chance of being on the commercial. We didn't get it, but we did make the top 6. We didn't get the commercial.
That's a weird number, top 6. You never hear that.
Well, that forerunner saved my life years later. I was living in San Diego. I was coming back from Orange County. I did a show at the Duck Pond. I emceed a thing for Sun Microsystems or something. Middle of the night, I was exhausted. I thought, well, I'll eat a bagel. You can't fall asleep eating. Wrong. Yeah, so I passed the rest area and thought, man, I should have stopped. I should have pulled over, stopped, and taken a nap. And I did. I took a nap. I just didn't bother to pull over and stop. I fell asleep going 65 miles an hour down Interstate 5. And I woke up, oversteered left, oversteered right, and the 4runner's a little top heavy. And it rolled once, twice, and landed wheels down off the road. Fortunately, it didn't hit anybody or anything. There's a border patrolman and a couple of border patrolmen coming up the highway the other way. And they told me this after they came over and saw I was alive. One said to the other one, when he saw me go off the road, there's no exit there. But the old 4runners, the late 84runners, had a roll bar in the back. And that's what saved my life, because they would have crushed it flat if it hadn't been for that roll bar in the back.
Thank God, man.
Yep. And I woke up as it was going over. So, I mean, it was like special effects, sparks flying, glass breaking, metal bending. It was amazing.
You have a history of depression and suicide attempts, ideation. Had it ever happened on the road?
Oh yeah. I think because I was doing we were having so much fun doing what we were doing, I didn't realize it was depression. I was a little moody at times. I just thought it was low blood sugar. I had my first thoughts of suicide when I was married to my first wife and I wasn't doing comedy. That's when I had my first thoughts. I'm like, if I don't do comedy, I'm going to kill myself. And my second thought, of course, was, well, what the heck? Divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, hell, I can still kill myself. That's how I got into comedy.
Comedy saved your life.
You did save my life. But, when you got nothing to lose, you can put it all in one roll of the dice. And so I did. That's my fourth TEDx talk. Suicide, the Secret of My Success, Dead Man Talking.
There you go. This was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun connecting with you on the road, man.
Yeah, it's the worst gig. It was Kingsport, Tennessee, Comedy Zone gig. There was an old grocery store, like an old dry goods store downtown. Been there forever. First floor was a restaurant, second floor bar, third floor was a comedy club. And I was working with a guy named Pat Miller. I think he's passed away, from Virginia. And Pat was about 3 feet wide, 3 feet tall, 3 feet around. And they had built a platform for the comics to stand on and get us up a little bit. So Pat's walking across that platform and a board breaks under his foot. Oh, best dad lib I've ever heard. He turns to the audience and he goes, "Nobody panic. It's just a stage I'm going through." Yeah. And they loved Pat, but they hated me because I wasn't Pat. So, and I'm not saying everybody in Kingsport, Tennessee is a Bible-thumping, race-baiting, homophobic redneck who thinks the Holocaust is fake and wrestling is real. Just the people who came to that show. Anyway, the guy in the front row, I can see over his shoulder, the guy in the second row's got a nickel-plated .38 with a hammer back pointed at me. So I turned sideways to make a smaller target, lowered my elbow to cover my vital organs, and waited. And in about 90 seconds, a woman in the back got tired of waiting, and she screamed, "Either shoot him or put it away." So obviously he didn't pull the trigger, but that was probably, the worst. Have you ever seen a video of the guy who hits the heckler with his guitar?
No.
I can't think of the guy's name, but I have. It's not urban legend. I have seen the video. There's a guy on stage at Jody's Comedy somewhere in the Deep South, and you can hear a guy heckling, and comics coming back at him. Finally, the comics had enough. He goes, "Come on up here," and then they drop the MF, and you can hear chairs moving because the camera's static on him. Hear chairs moving. You see the guy's shadow coming, and then right before you can see him, you can still see the guy's got an acoustic guitar. He takes it off and he El Kabongs him, boom, and he pulls the guitar back. It's trashed, and he had a pick in his hand, so he put the pick back under the strings, which is my favorite part. And you can hear the heckler hit the floor. And here's my favorite line: the whole thing. Hear the heckler go, "I want my money back." And that guy went to jail. The comic went to jail, had to go to court, cost him $5,000 to some kind of fine because the crowd turned on him, They assumed it was his fault, and he ended up having to get an attorney, spend a bunch of money, and pay a fine.
Painful, painful.
Yeah, so the road was, not every gig was a punchline, improv, funny bone,
I am my act, like I said, I'm disabled. My act is pointing fun at that, and I used to offend people on the road, and with my being disabled. Like I have I said one line once in Jersey. Jersey doesn't care; they're fine with anything. I said something once in Jersey where the crowd, and I came up with the best ad lib that I kept for years. And I turned to the side and I'm talking in the mic like I'm talking to myself as the audience. And I go, "Oh, he's dirty and mean. We don't like our cripples dirty and mean. We like them clean and in institutions." And then it was 3 minutes of laughter, and I couldn't tell the next joke.
Yes, my favorite, and I couldn't follow it. I had to say thank you very much, good night. Was Charlie Goodnights. I'd done about 35, 40 minutes. There's a bunch of people down front making a ton of noise, but they were drinking Dom Perignon, so they didn't want to throw them out. Finally, I threw them out with about 10 minutes to go. And the last person out was a woman. She's almost to the door, and then she starts turning around. She must have heard something that sounded like her name because drunks are voice activated. Mm-hmm. And she screamed at me, "F you!" And I said, "No, not even for practice." And the place exploded. And like you said, I couldn't follow it. I had nothing better than that. Thank you very much. That's my time. So, yeah, sometimes I'm hard to follow, even by myself.
I get it. It's a skill and a gift.
Yes.
I like I said, I went pretty quickly from open micer to headliner, and so I got a gig where I would perform every weekend at the Laugh Factory when it was in New York.
Yeah.
And New Year's Day, I got a call. There was a fallout. Could I do a spot? I was like, sure. So I came in. I looked up at the marquee. My name was there. And I was shocked. I was like, oh. And I took a picture and I posted on Facebook. And you were talking about comics always shitting on each other. All the comics on my Facebook feed were like, "Sweet, how'd you Photoshop that?" And like, it was the best moment of my life. And I quit there like that day. It was awful. Now, it's amazing how low self-esteem or not really feeling like you deserve something can impact you.
Yeah, because obviously, ironically, you were doing very well.
Yeah. I tell you, Opie and Anthony launched my career. You remember that radio show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You were on the radio show in the mid-'90s, and they were either shortly after that or they were actually on the air by then.
Yeah. So we were promoting the Short Bus Comedy Tour, and we got a spot on that show. And on the show was Ralphie May and Patrice O'Neill.
Yeah.
And they loved me. So, my target audience is dead fat guys. And you never know what you're going to do in radio spots. Like they tell you, don't do bits, like just be loose. And so Opie or Anthony, I can't remember which one, said, "Why don't you give us a few minutes of your stand-up?" I'm like, "What? Tell my jokes right here, right now?" They're like, "Yeah, why not?" I'm like, "Great, performing for 3 people again, just like last night." And they started cracking up, and the guy who introduced me was the opener on the Short Bus Tour, and he goes, "Now a comic with cerebral palsy." And my first line out of the gate was, "Great, cerebral palsy. That's right. I make you think about the palsy."
Nicely done.
That's what I love about stand-up. It's all wordplay. It's all,
Oh, yeah.
and you got to pay attention.
Yeah, well, I said more than once. Comics don't get paid to talk; they get paid to listen.
Right.
You need to be a great listener, and then repeat what you've heard.
So, do you have any funny stories about that, man? About wordplay?
Trying to think. Yeah, because every now and then something will come across. I I have to give some thought. Maybe next episode, Mike, try to think of because I love wordplay. I love turn of a phrase.
Me
Um,
too.
one of my most popular bits, and I didn't realize it was going to be that way, is a comic hears two voices at all times: devil on one shoulder, angel on the other. And I tell a story about the TSA. I'm at the little airport here. They're shorthanded, so instead of the man patting me down, it's a woman patting me down. And back then, the verbiage for the lead up to it was, she looks me right in the eye and says, "Sir, are there any parts of your body more sensitive to touch than others?" And I hear two voices. Say it. You're gonna arrested. And when I would go, especially on the ship, when I go around the ship, people were doing this. Because pretty much everybody in real life has had a moment where somebody's harshing on them, and the devil's like, "Kill him. You're going to jail. Kill him." So, especially if you worked in retail or banking or something where you're dealing with the general public all day long. So that was it was an epiphany for me when the bit caught on. I'm always surprised at what the audience latches on to, and the upshot of that is somebody would yell something in the audience. The audience would see the dirty response flash across my face. They could tell by my expression that I was about to say something, but they knew I'd held back, and you could hear them in the audience going, "Say it." I can't. I want to get paid. Say it.
So I became a social worker before I got into comedy. Why I got into comedy was because in 2002 I was diagnosed with HIV, and then I just went into a deep depression, and I realized I tried stand up a few times before. I realized that was the only thing that made me happy.
Yeah.
And so I quit my job. I did stand up, and I didn't get another job for 6 months to a year. And in that time, it was just all devoted to making people laugh. And another one bites the dust with your fly trap, huh, Frank?
Yeah, that's my fly zapper. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I saw you look. I was like, so that was the best thing I could have done, because it got me into performing. HIV made me a star.
Well, and Zara Khan, my other podcast host, guest or co-host, she started essentially in LA because she lives in Orange County, but she goes to the mics in LA. So she's like you. You two are the comics that I know with the best work ethic. I mean, when she was beginning, she was doing 5, 6, and 7 mics a week. And she moved up very quickly. She got a manager inside of 3 years, which I never got a manager. But she's got that work ethic, but she's also got a little bit of what you've got. She was submitting a packet to Colbert to do late night writing for that show. And she calls me up. She goes, "I can't. The packet's not funny. I'm not going to get the gig. I'm not going to get the gig." And then I think when she made the short list, which is where she sits right now, I guess she made the first round.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but she calls back, "What if I get the job? I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it." I go, Zara, first off, I'm not going to get it. Then when you get it, I can't do it. What if they find out I can't do it? So she got a little bit of that, I can't do it. I'm not that funny. Well, they thought you were. So
it's all imposter syndrome, man.
Yeah, exactly. You and I have talked about. I have reverse imposter syndrome. I'm just waiting for everybody to figure out that I'm far more amazing than they think.
How's that working out for you?
Nobody's tumbled to it yet. I'm waiting because with imposter syndrome, you're waiting for somebody to go, "Hey, you don't deserve that, Masters." So I'm waiting the reverse imposter syndrome. Hey, you're famous. Thank you. Thank you very much.
When I got my master's in social work, I was 23, and like I was really depressed the day it happened. And my father said to me, was trying to engage me in conversation, and he goes, "What's wrong with you? You just got a degree that tells you how to talk to people, and I can't even carry on a conversation with you." And it dawned on me then. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm really depressed right now. I feel like I got this master's and I'm still disabled. It didn't change anything. Like I was expecting that to change me for some reason.
Ah.
And when I got into comedy, it's having that degree is something like I'm really upset about, because if I didn't have a social work degree, I would have just kept going because I would have had no other skills.
Oh, you wouldn't have had a plan B.
Right. Plan B is great, but not if you want something.
Yeah, especially if you're starting in New York or LA. I mean, it's just because you got to be at the mics, all that see and be seen, hang out.
I went from open micer to headliner because in 1 year I did 320 gigs.
Yeah.
It's all about just keeping going, momentum, writing. Like that's when new comics ask me what to do, I'm like, don't quit. Do not ever quit. You'll have days when you're like, I can't do this anymore. Ride it out.
Yeah, the thing I've noticed is I did a couple open mics here in Eugene, years ago. People would, would you come out to the open mic? Got an open mic starting. Would you come out and do it? Sure, okay, fine. Do it as a favor. And what I found was that the comics, they didn't spend a lot of time writing. I worked hard on the craft. I worked hard on writing the jokes, and then jokes become a bit becomes a chunk with segues. These gals just go up on stage and kind of wander around verbally, hoping to trip over a punchline. I just don't see the same work ethic as I did in my graduating class, or the comics who came up right before, right after me.
I will tell you this. I am really good at ad-libbing because for 6 months I decided, you know what? I'm sick of my jokes. All I'm going to do is go up on stage at open mics and just talk to the other comics. I'm just going to get over that fear of not having material, and I'm just going to talk. And that skill really helped me on the road because I wasn't afraid if something was going wrong to abandon it, or if something happened in the audience to address it. I know of other comics who like stick to a script. I hate a script.
Well, and I know comics who go to the audience and they're not good at audience work. They don't have anything. When I go to the audience, oftentimes I've got leading questions. Anybody here besides me ever had your chest cracked? Open heart surgery? Hands go up. And I've got bits. I got 25 minutes on cardio.
Right.
So, or just when I work the shifts, I bring the lights halfway up. I open by saying, "This is called comedy and conversation. You got something to say? Raise your hand or shout it out." And they do. They get comfortable, and I go, "Where was I? You're talking about the Waffle House." Oh, that's right. Because they have permission to yell at the stage, and there have been some magic moments on the ship. Going back, I love audience work. I do about 10 minutes stand up first just to make them comfortable that I am funny, and then dive into the audience and go back to stand up. If it's not going anywhere and I get any traction, dive back into the audience. Back to, and I always close with the slideshow. So I know I got a great way to close. So,
because of my brain injury and the fact that I was a serious drug addict for several years, my memory is shot. I forget things so quickly nowadays that when I do shows on the road, I will bring a set list filled with all of my bits, like three rows of single space jokes, and I just give it to an audience member, and I say, look, I'm gonna forget something on stage. If I struggle, and I point to you, yell something out. I don't care what it is, just yell it out. And I've used that, and they've yelled something out I don't like, and I go, I hate that joke. Give me another one. Like, it's a great way to get audience participation and make it funny.
It's brilliant.
Frank King called me brilliant. Frank King called me brilliant. Oh. Well, I gotta go look for a location to get married, so we're gonna have to end this shindig.
I thought you already picked a venue.
We did, and because of COVID, we had to postpone the date to February. So we still get married this year. So what we did was we're going to do it on the cheap the first time around, and we're going to get married on the beach in October. And so we're going to go scout out the beach. Hopefully it doesn't rain.
All right. Well, enjoy the day, Mike.
Thank you. I want to invite you to my wedding, Frank. You have any plans to come to New York?
Do not, but if I'm anywhere in the neighborhood, I'll rent a car and drive up.
I'll clear it with Jeanette. You can do 5 minutes at my reception.
Yeah. Or the...
I'm kidding.
What's the dinner? The pre-wedding dinner, the rehearsal dinner would be more smaller crowd.
We have comments I didn't even see. John Mew is back for more.
Yep.
Blackwater Billy wrote, I got a Motel 6 for you. You know who Blackwater Billy is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a cousin of mine by marriage. No, cousin of mine by blood, actually. Billy Blackwelder.
Cool. Hey, sorry you inherited somebody like Frank there, Billy, but good to meet you. John Mew says hello. And a friend of mine, Kathy, says hello, and we're good to go. All right. Thank you all for stopping by. We'll see you soon. Have a good one, Frank.
Yes, if you enjoyed the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. If you didn't enjoy the podcast, you know the drill. We hope you have no friends.
See ya.
See ya.